I'm Brad Sarin, Superintendent of the Sun Prairie Area School District, bringing Operational Expectation 10 to the Board of Education. We are happy to report that this report is from 23-24, and there are 8 indicators of compliance. We're bringing this to the Board of Education in being compliant in all 8 indicators with artifacts of compliance for all 8 indicators. You'll see in the presentation that we also present themes for the year and also strategic work ahead. And so from here, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Leonard and her team to go over the details of Operational Expectation 10.
Thanks, Brad. OE10 is the learning environment, and this is where we focus on ensuring that all learning spaces, all educational spaces are places where kids are welcome and thriving in our educational experiences in the Sun Prairie School District. So while there are 8 different components, there are 4, I'll say 5 high-level themes that you'll see listed in this screencast or the report. It's really a focus on us being inclusive and ensuring equitable access and outcomes for students. It's focusing on community building, engendering a sense of safety for our students and caring for their well-being, as well as ensuring that we have clear communication and policies so that we are clear across the system and have clarity within our community. And then lastly, we'll focus a bit on professional development. We need to ensure that we're providing the tools, training, and resources for all staff to ensure that we can carry out the expectations of OE10. And so 3 TLE directors will be sharing with you, Jennifer, Janet, and Kurt. They'll go over at a very high level what each of the 8 components is. There are links or artifacts for compliance attached to that, and they'll give you a brief explanation of at least an artifact or 2. We'd encourage you to stop this presentation on each of the 8 areas to dig into the artifacts so that you have an understanding of what exists as an artifact or evidence of our compliance. And so with that, I'm going to turn it to Jennifer to get us started with 10.1. Thank you.
So kicking it off with 10.1, creating welcoming spaces, this component emphasizes the importance of classroom spaces where every student feels accepted and supported in their personal and their academic development. The evidence that we've shared highlights the training and the coaching systems we've put in place to support this expectation. And specifically, we've included a picture of our Welcoming Schools trainers who we have trained internally to be leaders of Welcoming Schools since 2022. The next component, 10.02, community and belonging, is all about building positive relationships and a sense of belonging within the school community, both inside and outside of the classroom. The evidence that we've shared highlights a variety of fidelity tools and of self-assessments and walkthrough tools that support continuous improvement and monitoring of community and belonging. The picture that we've shared is an example of one of those continuous improvement tools. It's our bullying prevention program assessment tool. Sites complete the tool annually and then action plan around their self-assessment results on a quarterly basis, which is how we continually improve in the area of bullying prevention, which supports community and belonging. Component 10.3, professional development. This element focuses on training educators to support student personal development, to foster learning partnerships, and to promote a culture of care. So our evidence here is our training plans that support the evidence-based practices we've selected to support the learning environment. Responsive classrooms training and on the assessment tool we've pictured here leads to implementation at all of our sites, which is exemplified by the other picture where we have students at Meadowview engaging in morning meeting, which is one part of responsive classrooms.
10.4 focuses on behavior management. So we understand in this district that behavior is a form of communication and a teaching opportunity. Staff and adults in our system need to be prepared to minimize the impact of challenging behavior and to teach around it. We have plans in place for both proactive strategies in our Day 1 readiness documents, which is linked as evidence for both elementary, middle, and high school. We also provide training and support to staff through developments such as our annual ALICE training, which is pictured at East High School with new staff, and which is also seen in our crisis our nonviolent crisis intervention training. 10.5 focuses on clear policies. So clarity and awareness of the guiding policies and practices is important for consistent implementation of our policies and procedures around behavior. Our elementary, middle school, and high school handbooks, which you see on the screen, are frequently reviewed and referred to as an example of how expectations are communicated. We also review and share behavioral data with the community and with school teams so we can monitor the effectiveness of these policies and procedures. 10.6 focuses on addressing inequities in our system. We have systems and processes in place through our continuous improvement work in SP 100, coaching, and data review associated with those processes. All sites, including TLE, routinely analyze behavioral data in our data review playbooks, which you see a snippet of on the screen, and on other information platforms to identify any inequitable outcomes. We are able to use this data and information to plan for implementation of strategies to reduce disparities in disciplinary practices, as well as to assess the effectiveness of our coaching.
Ten point seven deals with best practices in creating a safe and orderly learning environment. It was recently reported to the board. We provide an annual safety and security dashboard, and we focus on safety plans and coaching around safety, including drills for active threats, fire and weather scenarios. 10.8 deals with the confidentiality of student records and student data. We provide annual notice to all families and caregivers regarding the information about student directory information. All caregivers of students new to the district also have the opportunity to select their directory information release preferences throughout the enrollment process. And we can report that there were no violations of breaches of student data within our system in the last year.
Thank you, Kurt and Jennifer and Janet. So tonight, on behalf of the superintendent, the Teaching, Learning, and Equity team is recommending a rating of in compliance on the operational expectation. All 8 expectations have been monitored and determined that they're in compliance with our artifacts linked for, to support that monitoring recommendation. As we were compiling this presentation, we looked back at the last time we shared OE10 results with the school board. So that was in September of 2022. You'll remember that we were revising OE10 and OE11. So we haven't had a presentation on these topics formally to the board since 2022. At that time, we were presenting in reflection of the 21-22 school year. And so these are the things we identified as next steps for 22-23, and then consequently 23-24. So at the end of the 21-22 school year, at a very high level, our focus on elementary was to ensure calibration and consistency with respect to how we manage, proactively support, and respond to behaviors across our 9 elementary sites, as well as the secondary level. And again, remember, this was in anticipation of the 22 school year. This was the beginning, the initial implementation of a district-wide approach to restorative practices. We had the initial training. In 22-23 was the first year that it was a district-wide consistent approach at the middle level, rolled up to the high school level, with some elementary schools included, and now rounding back to ensure all elementary schools have been included. And so as we move forward, that will continue to be our work to have the restorative practices at all levels. So as we look back in reflection from the last time we worked on OE10 and OE11 and presented it to the board, these were our target areas, and we have made progress and will continue to make progress on these system-wide approaches. Our work for the year ahead. So now thinking about being in reflection from the 23-24 school year to 24-25. Our work really falls into 2 buckets as we think about our learning environment. Our instructional framework articulates how we should be interacting in all spaces with all learners. We'll continue to work on the full implementation of elements 1, 2, and 3. Looking back over the past 2 years, we recognize we've made progress, and yet we still have spaces in our environment where not every educator is exhibiting the expected column of the practice profile for what we would expect for elements 1, 2, and 3. So we've made progress, and we need to continue to work on that for 24-25 to ensure all educators are exemplifying what we call out as the adult behaviors that are appropriate in the expected category. The way we'll make that growth this year is through coaching and feedback, using the practice profiles and giving feedback to educators and support of coaching for how they interact with students in the learning environment. We'll also be monitoring for consistency of implementation using fidelity checks or fidelity walk to be in the space where we're interacting with students and looking for evidence that the adult behaviors reflect what's expected in the instructional framework. We'll also be deepening our work around social emotional learning and continue a clear focus on equity. We have articulated our social emotional learning standards. They are also integrated into our content areas. We've specifically focused on those through ELA and math in our curriculum renewal and design plan. And it's our work to continue to ensure that our SEL standards are seamlessly interwoven into all learning spaces at all parts of the day. We also need to continue our work coaching around our site-based equity problems of practice. As we reflect back over the past 2 or 3 years, we've become more effective at writing our problems of practice, focused on data, and planning strategic actions to address those problems of practice. And we're making some progress for some focus areas of students. We're seeing early results in literacy that are promising. We're seeing some work around decreases in exclusionary discipline, and opportunity gaps still exist, and differences in how we approach that work still show up through risk ratios. And so we need to continue to dig deeply and focus on the students who are in need of our behaviors to be different to ensure we have equitable outcome and access for all learners. So that's the first bucket, really looking back and thinking about where have we progressed in elements 1, 2, and 3, and where do we need to continue to grow in elements 1, 2, and 3. While we're doing that, we'll also be working as a team to move forward with elements 4, 5, and 6. That involves those of us at the district level in concert with folks at the site level to think about who are the important training partners that we need to use our NERN, our implementation network tools. There's a tool called the Hexagon tool, which helps us identify different trainings and partners and determine whether or not they should be lifted up as a partner for us to use for training and their resources to ensure that we're supporting all educators with the tools and skills and strategies necessary to live out the expected column of elements 4, 5, and 6. So you'll hear us talk about that more as we move through the year. And then the final piece that we're bringing forward is, as we've evolved with restorative practices in education in our system, we need to continue to evolve the behavior matrix. We've certainly had instances this year where it's become apparent to us that we need to be thoughtful in our approach of including restorative practices as part of our behavior matrix and being clear across the system as we have been evolving and growing in a system-wide approach to restorative practices. So we certainly have seen throughout the year that that's work we need to continue to work on and will be an area of focus for us. So we thank you for your time in watching our presentation. We look forward to dialogue with you at the board meeting. Please send any questions you'd like us to address specifically ahead of time so we can be well prepared to answer your questions. Thank you so much.